Hello everyone, this is Jacob Hopia, the producer of The Apex. In this episode, Jan and RJ spend some time with a guest that has been riding with us since the beginning, Mike Eversole. Mike offers advice about growing a clothing brand, speaks about overcoming obstacles in business, and we end the show talking about the fight between Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. Also, Jan opens a Christmas present from yours truly, me, Jacob Hopio. If you want to find out what it is, stay tuned at the end of the show. Check out the new signature collection at Envision Clothing Company at envisionclothingcompany.com. If you want to support us, there are 3 ways to do so. One is to donate to our cause at www.patreon.com/theapexpodcast. Second, visit our merch line that is proudly partnered with Envision Clothing Company at envisionclothingcompany.com. The final one is completely free. All we ask is if you learn something from this episode or know someone that needs to hear our message, share it with them. Please subscribe and hope this pushes you toward your apex.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Apex Podcast. I am your host, Jan, and this is where we interview ordinary people accomplishing extraordinary things and try not to pee ourselves laughing while we're doing the intros. RJ is in the corner eating food covered with everything spice, and when I say everything, I literally mean everything. Oh my God. What a visual for people. And then we are also sitting here with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Mike Eversole from Envision Clothing Company. What up, Mike?
Just another day in the life.
Yo, so I just want to point out right now, the first thing I want to say in this episode is that it is an absolute privilege to be recording this with Mike up here in the crib at the Bliss Lofts in downtown Canton, because Mike has been riding with us since this was just an idea in the spare bedroom of a college apartment.
Wasn't he one of my first interviews as co-host?
Yeah. I think he was the
I was the first.
Yeah, the first interview.
Nice. Full circle.
Yeah. So the landscape is a little bit different at this point.
Yeah.
But if anything, I would say that we're definitely all a lot closer as homies over the last couple of years, for sure. All the stuff that we've been through. And actually, one of the first things that we're going to talk about is the fact that Envision just had another launch. And so we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the journey leading up to it, and then what it's been like since the launch, which actually crashed his website.
Is it a launch or how do you?
I don't know. How do you phrase it?
I usually call them a launch, but
Okay.
I mean, there's other times where you're like, hey, did this come with the new release? Or, hey, when's the next launch? I don't know.
I'm trying to get my lingo down. I'm the old man.
I don't know. I think it's just preference at that point. I use both.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we've got the new launch release, whatever we want to call it, right? So why don't you explain a little bit about what this release was, and then we can kind of reverse engineer how you got there.
Yeah, so our launch came out on this past Saturday, so that would have been December 5th. That was the signature collection. Our whole purpose was we knew we kind of had to expand the brand and everything it kind of embodied at that time. Knew we wanted to get some new items. For example, like we've never had a women's legging. That's usually, it's like a specialty type item, like leggings, shorts, anything of that nature, joggers. We didn't launch joggers, but, we did sample them. I actually have them on right now.
Yeah, I'm pissed I wasn't a part of that sample.
But we got our biggest thing was like we wanted to try to bring something new, but also try to stay the same. So we, working with, Richard, our designer, it was more trying to be a little bit more creative, but still try to maintain that same image. And, we did that by releasing crew necks. We released a hoodie like this that I have on right now. Our signature, no pun intended, t-shirt has always been like those S17 tees. And, we went with a new color, same design. So this design right here that I have on, it's like a script, almost like a signature. So, I mean, it's not to be cliche. It's not to be corny. It's just like we kind of looked at this as this was going to be the turning point, and this was going to be kind of the start of something new, having a new specialty item like a legging involved. So we kind of just wanted to capitalize on every single avenue possible.
Speaking of specialty items,
yeah.
this is a serious inquiry by a big fan. Are jorts in the work? Mullets are back. I'm not gonna say who wants to know if you have jorts.
Dude, my
But
dad.
somebody wants to know if you have
My dad
would it happen to be the guy in the
somebody.
corner?
It might be the guy in the corner.
Might be the guy in the corner.
Rick and his jorts. That would be hilarious.
Jorts, rock flip flops, high socks on the weekend. I will take you up on that.
Well,
Jorts need to come with grass stains.
okay.
No. I want pristine, no pre-wash, no acid wash, just right above the knee jorts.
Want the frills on the bottom? Or do they need to be
Clean cut.
But yeah, so it was really just we kind of wanted to signify kind of what this turning point was going to look like and kind of like where we hope to take things moving forward. And I mean, it's so much more than just clothing, at least in my mind. And, you know, a lot of people who have been supporting ever since I started, they kind of see that long-term vision. So I think that's why we've been able to do the things we've been able to do.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, leading up to any type of release or anytime you're I mean, me and you always have conversations. Anytime you reach a point where your brand, your company, your business, your career in general, when it's time for it to level up, right, it gets stressful.
It's the scariest thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Like I know for us personally here at Apex, every single time we start a campaign for somebody, or every single time we're out, like I was just in there editing a video before we got on the mics. You know, like it's always freaky because as much research as you put in, as much time as you put in, you never actually know if that shit's gonna work until you pull the trigger.
right.
Like, and that is something that I see that freezes people in their careers all the time. It freezes entrepreneurs. It freezes me. Me and Jake literally just had a conversation. Actually, I think it was in our team meeting the other day where we were like, "Yo, we need to stop thinking so much and start executing more."
Yep.
You know, so as you were building up to the launch and stuff like that, for people that are out there that might be thinking like, "Oh, I want to start a dropshipping store. I need to start my own brand. I need to do something different." What are some things that you encountered along this launch that you like? I don't want to say caused you stress, but are things that you needed to address and figure out that inevitably ended up leading to a phenomenal launch, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
So I think the biggest thing, like for people who know me, who may listen to this, or people who don't know me quite yet, when I first started the brand, I was still in my undergrad at Hiram College, and whenever I first started that, I mean, after I paid for the business licensing and the vendors and the store, and I mean, literally everything you can think of, I realized that I didn't have any money left. I didn't want to ask my designer, who was, I mean, he's to this day, he's been my only designer. He'll always be my only designer. You know, I didn't want to ask him to throw money in the pot to do that because I knew long term, like I kind of wanted to ride off with this and be loyal to him and, you know, have him do every single design, whether it's, you know, 5 years from now or 55 years from now, you know.
If you're listening to this, Rich, he's going to be getting an engagement ring soon. Just, you know.
Right. But, you know, so I looked at that while I was still in college, and I was like, I need to do something that isn't going to require me to throw more and more money in the pot, where I didn't know if this was going to work. I didn't know if this was something that was going to be long-term. I wanted to do something that was going to protect me, and I thought I had a cool idea, and I let it ride. So that's why, like, when I first started, it was a drop shipping store. And, you know, I think drop shipping is a good model for people who have a lot of other things to worry about. So at that given time, I had to worry about money. I had to worry about you know, my schoolwork. I had to worry about my baseball career at that time. And now that's kind of shifted more into, we got to a point where it was time to start investing in legitimate stock. And, you know, some people call it, you know, a good idea. Other people kind of bash you for it. But for me, it was more, once I got out of school, you know, we had already had stock related items. I had, you know, a shelf in my dorm room my last year in college. Well, year and a half because of the coronavirus. But, you know, I had that shelf in my room. I had, like, when we had people over, people wanted gear. When I came home for holidays, I'd bring it home with me. I mean, it was always stop and go, stop and go, stop and go.
I remember you rolling up because me and Mike actually realized, and if you listen to some of our previous episodes, which let's make sure that we link like the last episode that we did with Mike in the description of this one. But if you go back and listen to that, me and Mike actually realized we were neighbors I vividly remember him like pulling back in and like moving back after school, backseat just full of Envision gear.
Yep.
Like when you saying that it literally went everywhere with you, I mean he's not lying. Just straight up like
Yep.
selling it in the trunk of the car type of stuff.
Well, yeah. So when I came home for good because of the coronavirus, I graduated. I had all this stock with me. It was really tough when COVID first hit because manufacturing was delaying things. People were kind of protective because they didn't know if they were going to have their supplier, be able to still supply them, that type of stuff. So our intended spring release, that didn't happen at all. And our intended spring release had to be kind of delayed into the summer. So when we started doing that in the summer, it was our Vital collection we did back in the summer. That was kind of when people started seeing things for the better a little bit with COVID. Like things started to open up a little bit more. I went to Myrtle Beach a week before the Vital collection release. I went to Myrtle Beach to kind of decompress and get away from it, believe it or not. So we had the Vital collection launch. That thing, that was a really good release. A lot of stuff, sold in that first opening weekend. We almost sold out in one of the items in the first 15 hours. But a lot of the other items, yeah, they still sold and they still did really well. I just knew, okay, our next release, we have to bring something new. We have to do something different, but still, use the same identity that we've been using. So we got to that point where I was freaking out because for people listening to this, my favorite question in the world to get asked is, how much do you make off this, bro? And I'm like, nothing. And they're like, well, that sucks. Why you do it? And you're like, because it's just not at that point yet. That doesn't mean you throw all the cards in on the table and you just kind of quit. And, it's more, you get to that point where you're starting to see growth and maybe the company can start to pay for its own taxes. Maybe the company can sustain enough money to, pay for the own website. This is no longer coming out of my pocket. Now this is more, it's continuing to scale at the rate that it's continuing to scale at. If I wanted to be an irresponsible entrepreneur, it'd be easy for me to pull $2,000 out of the pocket, go waste it on the bar like half the people in my hometown do, and then not have anything anymore to sustain or watch grow anymore. Right. A lot of people don't have that form of discipline. So this release, it was so stressful the way it was. One, because COVID has gotten worse again. So I was fearful of what was manufacturing going to be like. Was it going to be like it was back in March and April? Was it going to be worse? Yeah. And I looked at it. Was it going to delay us? Was this going to, I was so concerned about things that I couldn't necessarily control. And because I'm so transparent with my audience and the people that support me, whether I know them personally or don't, I didn't want to let anybody down. So I knew I had to kind of shift gears. Richard, my designer, knew we had to shift gears. And that's why we released an item that we always have, just a different color. We brought kind of a new face like the crew neck Jan has. This is really one of the first items with our new modernized logo that we switched up last fall over a year ago, where we've put that on the back with a new design, some simplistic designs on the front. First specialty related item, like a legging jogger or short, we went with the leggings first. And that's why it was so stressful, because you're trying to perfect something that could make or break how you kick off the start of the new year. COVID virus or no coronavirus, there's not really an excuse for that. And that's something a lot of people have used as a crutch this year, where I saw it more as an opportunity to, how can I run the score up more? How can I learn a little bit more? How can I fail more and still find a way to kind of overcome that and, manifest these failures into more growth long term? And that's why this release was so successful.
One thing I want you to definitely hit on is I feel like a lot of this release was kind of vetted out and formed in a time period where we had absolutely no idea what the future was going to look like for either of our businesses.
Yep.
Right. We were straight trapping in a Walsh apartment. Thank you. Shout out to Walsh University. Thank you guys for allowing me to move my podcast studio into an apartment on campus. Because I needed to self-quarantine away from my family as an ICU nurse, And Mike, despite the risk to his basically volunteered to help vlog the entire experience.
Yep.
You know, and really try to capture that because it was really important to me. I knew that it was something that we needed to try to cover, but inevitably, what ended up happening is we took two. We took 2 different trips out to BFE to pick up some whiteboards, and then we filled out 24 feet of whiteboard
Yep.
on a pretty much nightly basis
Yep.
for weeks at a time. So like from the beginning of that quarantine to what was it 6 weeks?
Yep.
Like 6 weeks later, what do you think happened in that 6 weeks? Because I noticed like a complete mental shift after that 6 weeks was over. So why don't we talk about like how that 6 weeks of uncertainty really kind of formed what became this launch?
So I think, and this was one thing that, I've definitely learned. Literally, when I went to New Mexico a couple months ago, I didn't realize it, then, but I realize it now. I think we just didn't know how to live in the moment for once, and like our conversations talked about what 8 months later was going to be like, what 5 years down the road was going to be like, what 25 years was going to be like when you're old and your time is almost up, like what it was going to be like for your kids or grandkids based on everything that you've spent your whole life growing, what it was going to be like for them. And the second that we just started focusing on like what was happening at that very day, that very hour, that very minute, I mean, I think a lot of the times when we got stuff done was when there was no music, phones were like at least silenced, if not dead, and we're scrambling, wondering who's got the charger, because my charger broke one of the nights. It's like the 12th time that's happened this year. But it was just more, we didn't have to really talk about anything. We just kind of wrote down what came to mind, and then it was like, from there, it was like playing connect the dots. And I know it doesn't sound as easy, it's not as easy as it sounds, but like, I guess when you kind of get on the same level with the person that you're with a little bit, you start to realize that there's actually a lot more creativity in the tank. And I think that really is just kind of what happened with us, because it was more, hey, like one thing could go wrong because of COVID. Your company could shut down tomorrow. Hey, your company could fail by next week. And it was more like, oh, cool, like a legitimate challenge. Not saying that business is not challenging, but this was like fight or flight, man. And
people are still stuck in that. Like to everybody that's listening to this that knows somebody that has a business that's either shut down or one that's struggling, like that feeling of not being certain what the next 24 hours can bring, for us was a benefit in that short period of time there, that 6 weeks, because like Mike said, it forced us to kind of step back and really stop focusing on what was going to happen 5 years from now and start focusing on like, holy crap, what are we going to be able to do in the next 48 hours?
Yep.
To kind of pivot, which everybody's like sick of saying at this point.
Yep.
I feel like the word pivot is like a cuss word at this point.
Right.
But inevitably it is a mindset shift. Like you have to start thinking more tactical, less strategic in those types of moments. And then as soon as you get a second to step back, which is like, after that quarantine kind of ended, you got a chance to kind of step back a little bit and start reevaluate. And got a lot more.
When that ended, I'll be the first one to tell you, like, I knew what our launch was going to be. We stayed up late many nights. The average time we were going to bed was probably like 4 or 5 a.m. on a good night, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd
get back from working 3 p to 3 a at the hospital. It'd be 4 o'clock in the morning. You're still up.
Yeah. Well, it's like once I had that launch that we did back in June concluded, like I knew we had everything figured out. Like this is how it was going to go. Like I started to really just kind of, I don't know. It made me feel a little bit more at ease knowing that work was done. But instead of like pressuring myself 2 weeks before that launch, oh my gosh, like, I'm second guessing everything. Oh hell, man. Like I went coached baseball a little bit before, when that first got welcomed back. Went coached baseball, drove to Myrtle Beach 10 hours, drove the whole entire way while my girlfriend and my other friend, they slept in the car. And the whole ride, it was just peace and quiet. No disrespect to them, but it was just like, wow, like I'm doing something for me and not what I think other people should want me to do. And that's why I put such a big focus on like not looking for the acceptance of other people. And when I came home and it was time for the launch, it was probably like the most at ease that I've ever been in a long time during probably some of the toughest times in our lives as a country, as the world, right? So it was a pretty easy shift for me.
Gotta roll with the punches sometimes. We've learned anything from this year. It's more or less just there's no point in sweating what you can't control.
Take it on the chin.
Yeah.
Keep moving. Yeah.
We could have. I mean, we've been blessed in the fact that when all this started, we were like, shit.
Yeah.
We're like we've been in meetings and going to see people and this and that, and we're like, we're not allowed to get into contact with people and sit there and brainstorm.
How you gonna do your
take
job?
pictures. Yeah,
Yeah.
what are we gonna do? And then all of a sudden it was just like, well, everybody and their mother has an interest in live streaming and remote stuff, and we're like, oh shit, we can do that too. We can actually do that better than what we had even thought. We didn't even think that was a market, and now that's what spurred us into everything that we're doing now. So, and I think that would have been a lost opportunity had we sat there and been stuck on the fact of what we were doing before, and that being ruined, and not being open to the fact that that was literally dropped in our laps.
Right. Well, that's what I feel like. There's a. I talked to a couple of different business owners that I know, and they've said something similar.
Opportunity strikes at the most inopportune time.
Yeah. And
Well, the reason why is because somebody else usually isn't willing. They're too scared to go take it for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm curious because I remember saying this like on a phone call meeting when I was on quarantine, and I basically was like, okay, it's gonna do nothing but continue to get worse because at that time I was still working at the hospital.
Yeah.
And I knew all that stuff, and I was like, there's gonna be two groups of people, right? Especially in the business world, one group of people are gonna crap themselves, sit in the fetal position, and cry because they're not gonna know what happened, right? Like they're not gonna be able to see the opportunity. They're not gonna. So something's gonna happen where they're gonna get paralyzed, right? And so we have a two-pronged approach, right? One, take every opportunity you can to try to help those people. I mean, we gave away so much free information.
Just
March
hours
through
of
May.
consultation work that
Yeah.
could have been charged, but was better off just spreading the information to try to help.
Yeah, just trying to save businesses. And then, like, on our end, just in the competitive world of the marketing world, like, we need to make sure that we're the ones putting on suits of armor and grabbing battle axes and running out, and being willing and open to RJ's point, that our model up until that point was podcasting. We had started exploring a little bit of the social media stuff, but that was actually something that we had explicitly told each other that we did not want to do. Like me running Facebook ads right now, when we first started the podcasting stuff, is something that like all three of us, me, RJ, and Jake, were like, yeah, we're never doing that.
And that was based off of one interaction with one customer that we didn't really have heads or tails of what protocol should be on that.
Right.
But then having to revisit that in the more digital sense of everything being remote, people wanting that intimacy and transparency with the companies and brands and individuals that they follow, it was way easier to kind of look back at that and be like, we went about this so wrong the last time.
Yeah.
And now we've been able. What the hell is he doing over there?
You just gotta be. We were like,
He's got
Theodore.
He just came and plopped.
Sam, get a picture of that.
He just came over and plopped right down there and said, "You're gonna rub me, and you're gonna like it."
He's smiling.
I know. He's
He's a good boy.
He's just looking.
Yeah.
Just looking up like, oh yeah.
He's like, you're enjoying.
I saw. Well,
you're enjoying this.
he
as much
was
as I
he
am.
was lingering around over there, and then for a second, he was like sitting at the table, like, "Where's my mic?" And then I saw him dip under the coffee table and poke his head up right between your legs. Oh, he just loves being loved on. Sorry, I got off track. My dog is just as good as getting us off track as I
I
am.
was gonna say, yes, you trained him well.
Like father,
Now
like
I've got-
son.
Now I've got two that I'm gonna have to watch out.
Look at him. He's a big glutton for love. Oh,
Oh, you talked about
People want the transparency with their companies now because they want to know that the money and support and followership is justified for a company that is also doing their part during these times.
Right. And so I have a question for Mike, and I like asking him these questions like every single time I have him on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm jealous as shit of his community that he has built because I've been trying to build one like that, and I can't ever seem to get to the point where I have like as loyal of a fan base, I guess. Maybe it's just because I'm not as pretty as Mike, but so you have this ambassador group, right?
Yeah.
When COVID hit, I'm genuinely curious because I don't actually think that we've really had like a conversation about this. Like, what did your ambassadors do?
I mean, truthfully, I think the mindset really shifted with them. You know, like I mean, everybody's doing their own thing, and you know, like I always say to most of them, hey, like you know, you guys aren't getting paid like a sponsorship or $50K a year. That like it's not like you could leave your job and do this for a living. You know, it's just kind of like, hey, like help me help you, and there's mutual benefit on both ends that seem feasible for you know the current times that we're in, and I think that's why it's easy for people to interact with me because I'm a pretty outgoing guy, but when people were, me, when people were like going from, you know, driving to work every day to working from home every day, when people went from working out every day to deciding if their treadmill was even going to work in their living room, like everybody's lives changed, which means a lot of people's mindsets changed. And I mean, yeah, it was more, hey man, like I got your back. I still want to support you and I want to share everything that I possibly can. But it was just more at this time, I don't know how to. I don't have the same motivation. I don't have the same schedule. I don't have that same routine. Like everybody was just kind of in their own funk and we had to all just kind of respect one another and maybe what we were kind of going through at that time. Cause I mean, everybody handles things differently and everybody was kind of in a different situation. Some people got to stay at work. Other people, you know, didn't have work. And I mean, I really think it just kind of shifted with everybody. And I think the simplicity of it it mattered the most. And, you know, it was just like trying to reach out to different people and just asking how their day was and if you could offer a helping hand. And, you know, it's not so much that I expect people, like I expect any of them to do things for me, but I just think because we connected on a really personal level right from the get-go, it's easy to trust and understand me, you know? And like, yeah, I have this group chat with all of them, but you get maybe 2 or 3 of them who respond and then 3 or 4 others who like message you on Snapchat separately. And then you have people who just kind of like, they read it and show up at your house like me. No. or they, you know, they just kind of like send you a message on Instagram a couple days later. Hey, like saw your message, like, you know, hope you're doing well. And it's not this ongoing, let me talk to each person for 2-3 hours a day, every single day. It's just more, you kind of reach out when you can. And when it's, you know, I guess the best opportunity to do so. But, you know, when things get tough or when things matter most, like, you know, let's just put it this way in regards to baseball. Like I got a lot of pinch hitters that I could put in the game if needed. And I saw that transition a lot when I took this job at Eastern New Mexico was, you know, when I was down there, I didn't have time for content. I didn't have time for pictures. I didn't even have all my gear. It was a whole new world for me, but I was still able to maintain a lot of content and, you know, was able to stay active because people were willing to step up when I couldn't be there. And I think that's just the difference. People they're ready to step up in the biggest of moments. And, you know, it's just kind of just how you approach it, I think.
Well, dude, I mean, when shit hits the fans, you find out what people are like made of, who's there, who's not. Like,
yeah.
And a lot of times, I think like I mean, your ambassador crew specifically, you talk about like Zach and Caroline and Gamble,
Yep.
And Chase. You know.
Yep.
There's names that I see consistently pop up on social, and like obviously Mike is going to be able to regurgitate that entire list. I am not going to be able to regurgitate that entire list.
Yeah.
But like there's those crew of probably that I like are like the ride or dies.
Yep.
You know?
And I haven't ever. The majority of them, 95% of them, they've never seen my face in real life, in person. They only know me from what a phone call, a FaceTime, and a tweet and Instagram post can show you.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't, and I hate talking about me, man. I hate it. It's the worst thing in the world. But if that doesn't really reflect my transparency and honesty and just my, friendly personality for the most part until you turn it into something else, then I don't know what will.
Yeah, you don't want to flip the switch on the Eversole
Whatever.
mentality train, beat you with a bat.
No.
Dude, so I've been thinking about this for a little while now. And I'm actually kind of curious about RJ's opinion on this too, because he's kind of the creative squirrel of the crew, lead creative, or I forget what our title is. But when it comes to the way that you approach like the written word, right? We were talking about like people leeching off of your captions and stuff like that.
Yep.
The other day.
No.
There-
It's one of we live in a world where it's very rare where not a lot of things haven't been said or haven't been done, but I guess it's just like the overall objective that you're trying to do with words or actions.
Well, I guess
Yeah.
let me finish. Let me add on this like last little qualifier to that question.
Yep.
And this is what I'm curious about with you too, like giving general advice to like a business client, right? How do you convey that transparency when you're writing, or when you're putting out content? Let's just open it up, not just writing. Like when you're putting out that content, people are like some people are scared, absolutely senseless, to be transparent with their audience about failures, about wins, about losses. There's some businesses that I've talked to that just think that if they admit fault, that it's the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to transparency with your crew or with your clients, I know you don't really have clients, but like the people that purchase your clothing.
Yep.
How do you be transparent and empathetic when you're putting content out?
For me, it's the easiest thing in the world because you don't have to backtrack on what you said or what you went through or what you thought. A lot of times, like, I'll be halfway through a workout and I'm just like thinking about stuff, whether it's like the music that I'm listening to or, if it kind of takes me back to some form of nostalgia, some things that I've went through in my life, or, if I get a text from somebody I haven't heard from in a while, or, it's literally just wherever I'm at, if I'm thinking about something, I don't know. It's for me, it's easy to write out captions or, to film vlogs because it's my story. It's my life. It's what I'm thinking. It's maybe how I've learned to apply that or maybe how I didn't, and at the end of the day, like if you're just being yourself, you don't have to worry about anything. And this takes me back to my favorite point is like, don't look for the acceptance of other people. Other people are so toxic in regards to it. If you try to always make other people happy in what you do, you will never, ever, ever be happy because it will never, ever, ever be good enough in their eyes, And I get a lot of shit from people who, I grow up with. Who I grew up with, and yeah, whatever. It was more, I can't tell you how many times people have accidentally sent me things, or I was with people who they want to try to take a jab at you and see if they can really get you going, and you learn to laugh with them, and and now they feel so awkward and they feel so weird, and now like they kind of just casually walk away or just quit responding to you. Like, you kind of just have to take kill with kindness to a whole different level, because here's the thing, I really don't care. Because if you put all your time, effort, and energy into people who do care, it's the same thing. Like when you guys were growing up, how many times did your parents say, oh, hey, like this ain't going to matter when you leave high school or college or whatever it is? Like how many times did you hear that? Or, hey, like as you get older, you probably won't be talking to, little Tommy down the road. How many times do you hear that? You hear it a lot of times, right? You have to focus on what you have right now and who you have right now. And if I'm going to be so hell-bent on people who was in my life when I was 8 years old to 18 years old, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, because I wouldn't have learned how to grow and how to kind of like manage in tough situations, or to how to deal with competition, or to, be outside of my comfort zone. And, that's why I get to do what I do right now, is because it's allowed me to be transparent, because once you start focusing on yourself and being selfish for the right reasons, you're going to learn just to be, much more happier than the people around you, and they're going to feed off that energy.
I just put out a post on Facebook a couple days ago about like making sure that you're refilling your own gas tank.
Yeah.
Before you start giving out energy, and that was something that I've struggled with since the beginning of COVID, really, because we have a really strong mission statement at Apex. Me, Jake, and RJ all constantly agree that when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, the end goal is to help people.
Yeah.
That's the end goal. And when you are put in a situation where like almost like fight or flight
Yep.
is turned on. And I don't know if this is what it was like for you, when all of this was going on, but when March hit, I was like, we're either gonna die and this entire thing is screwed, or we're gonna learn a metric shit ton.
Yep.
and what ended up happening is, we learned a lot, but we gave away a lot of energy constantly, because everybody, when you're in a position where people start to look up to you, and like my little brother's starting to go through some of this stuff right now, right? Like his friends are starting to look up to him because he's a little bit different than the average 18-year-old, right? And you get to this place where like, people are looking up to you, they're asking you advice, they're trying to figure out like, hey, what can you do for me? And then if your mission statement is help people, you're going to constantly just give, right? And if you don't take the time, like you said, purposely selfish, right, to refill that tank, to figure out, okay, what do I need to focus on for me in order to continue being able to give back to these people, then you're just going to end up, like, I think the way that I phrased it is, like, you're going to be able to see positive impact that you're having in the world and have no idea how to deal with it, because inside you're completely empty because you've just given away all of your energy.
Well, and I think the biggest thing is, it's not so much that I look for the advice of other people. It's just more, I'm willing to die for the things that I do and am most passionate about, and a lot of other people aren't. And that's where the separation is.
I when you asked me my idea of transparency and whatnot, I think there's varying levels to it. So if I'm speaking to somebody who, and especially with small, medium-sized businesses and stuff like that, if I'm going to a client and I'm talking to them, the first thing that you need to ask them or have them understand is they have to be very transparent with themselves. It's never going to work. It's going to come off false if they're not transparent with themselves and the people that are closest to them. I am, and anybody who talks to me or anybody that knows me knows that I am very shameless about being who you are and liking the things that you like because you like it, not because it's popular, not because of what people think about you or what that thing is. And me and my buddy Brock, there was somebody in the gym I hadn't seen in like 8 months. Came in, started talking to me. Hey, how you been? Blah, 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 whatever. 20 minutes later, I knew everything in the last 8 months that they had been up to. Divorce, moving in and out, why it happened, weird sexual stuff that their husband's into that I never wanted to know. And after we're done, Brock looks at me and goes, how do you do that?
Right.
And I'm like, because I am not afraid to tell them the same stuff.
Right.
If you sit there and you open yourself up to them, people will open up to you. You have to. It's not so much saying the right things; it's saying equal things.
It's the principle of reciprocity.
You want that equality,
But only certain people deserve that from you, though.
but I don't believe that. I'm an open
Really?
book. I will go talk to anybody
Yeah.
about anything, and that's
Okay.
why I know. I know so much about so many people everywhere that it's like, well, why don't anybody ever give you a hard time? Because they know what I know.
Right.
Because they told me.
I think, honestly, what it comes down to is like, because if we were to ask Jake that question, he would be the polar opposite. Guaranteed.
But
He's over there nodding.
it comes
he's
down
like,
to-
nah, fam.
It comes down to I don't care. I
Right.
go, anybody does any minimal amount of research, they're gonna find out what they want to know. So why am I just not honest about it? So I'm honest,
Yep.
and I think that translates to business. But there's different types of transparency.
Sure.
If you're looking to build a good business, you want that corporate transparency where people know what's going on with your company and why it's going on.
Yeah.
An offshoot of that is emergency transparency, which is the number one thing that they taught me in sport management. Get out ahead of it before anybody else has a chance
Yeah.
to say it before you. So if you're in emergency transparency, you get it out there, you apologize, you state your case, you tell everybody what happened, and you nip it in the butt there. As soon as someone else leaks that information out to the public before you yourself do, it is then a game of catch up.
Yep.
There is no getting out ahead of it so people can forgive you. It's automatically becomes backtracking. I should have. Oh no, that's not exactly. And then it's out of your hands at that point.
Yeah.
People have already made their base assumptions, stuff like that.
Twitter trolls get a hold of it.
Yeah, and then
It's over.
then everything ends up getting twisted. So you need to have good. Fingers crossed that you never run into that. But emergency transparency is basically throwing all your chips in the air and hoping that they land back in your hands.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
And then the base form of that is just regular corporate transparency now. People want to know what's going on. They don't want you to hide for 6 months and show back up and be like, hey, we're doing this now, blah, 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 blah.
Right,
They're like, that doesn't even seem like the same company that I liked 6 months ago.
They're gonna be like, who's this guy?
Exactly. And then I think the most important thing, especially with small and medium-sized businesses, is that alongside that corporate transparency, you need to have a sense of personal transparency.
Yep.
People nowadays want to know what it's like for the people that work within the company that they support.
Yeah.
They want to feel as if Joe Schmo walked off the street and is making the shirts and clothing and boots and hats and all that.
I was just about to do the same thing. When I started thinking about
all that stuff themselves.
Yeah.
It is a relatability issue.
Yep.
Granted, when you grow to a certain extent, that is impossible. It is impossible to translate that type of intimacy with your consumer base.
Oh yeah.
And there's ways around that. There's community things that you can do and stuff like that. But if you are a small or medium-sized business, let the people know what is going on.
Well, that's why people, when they order from me, like out of the stock items that I have, like I always write something out to them. I mean, that turns, like for example, so far in just the first couple of days of this launch, there's been 52 orders total. 40 of those came in the first like 12 hours.
Yeah.
And then in the first day, it got up to, it was like 47, 48. Now we're like 51, 52. But packaging 50 orders, that takes maybe 25, 30 minutes. But because it took two hours, it's because every single person got a letter written to them expressing, me saying thank you. And whether I know them or not, I mean, yes, they get the text and or call from me, but they also get the letter too. And, you have like the next day, I mean, granted, these are automated, but, like I make sure that my automated emails to go out to each person also goes out thanking them. So, I mean, it's, if anything, people are getting 2, 3, 4, 5 different pieces of thanks between Instagram and Twitter content, like any form of social content saying thank you, the emails, the letters, and then if I know you personally, you're getting the text and or phone call or FaceTime or whatever. So, but I had this conversation literally with my best friend, Austin, who just got home from the Marine Corps tonight. He was actually supposed to come here, but he drove 10 hours, so he's like tired. Yeah. but, you know, like, this is literally one thing that we talked about. And he was just like, dude, like, I love that you're, like, for the people. You know, you go out of your way to, you know, like, you stress yourself out trying to make sure that the people who do support you are taken care of in some way, shape, or form, or, like, they understand that you have their back. And he just said, what are you going to do someday when there's thousands of orders in the first 12 hours or, you know, or 100,000 orders in, you know, the first week, right? Like, how are you going to navigate that? And it's just, I mean, at that point, it gets really, really, really hard. But because of what you did, people always remember where you started, regardless, good or bad, because you kind of established those relationships early. People will remember them later.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, hey, I knew him when he first started. You didn't.
Yeah,
You know?
no, exactly. There's that sense of first in, last out mentality.
Yeah. And if anything, it's a sense of, man, like, I've never met him, but I know him type thing. And, like, people envy that. I told, you know, buddy of mine is another friend of mine, like, you could have the greatest thing in the world from a product or service standpoint. Like, if you yourself, like, if you're a piece of shit, people don't want it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I think people's minds have shifted in regard to business used to be a thing that solves a problem. Now it's a thing where business not only solves a problem, but they want to be able to solve that problem with people who care to help, like, get to the solution.
Yeah, I agree.
I was trying to think of something to say that entire time. I just kept staring at Jake petting Theo.
Oh, he is loving all of this right now. He won't even come over to me.
I know I saw you trying to call him over.
Around
And he's like,
everybody else around the table, and he's just like, God, no.
He's like, no,
everybody else is loving on.
He's like, I always get your pets at home. He's like, I don't always get these pets.
Yep.
He likes Mike.
But I think going back to the whole, you know, the whole signature collection stuff, I think the biggest thing, my favorite thing is I wanted to always do some form of, like, a gym or an athletic facility through this brand, so it is not just a product and, you know, you hope it scales. It's like there's such a long-term plan into it. I've mentioned this on my YouTube channel. I've mentioned this in, you know, pieces of content. Like, the end goal, and this is kind of where it signifies, because when I hit, like, kind of peak COVID in the middle of the summer, you know, I was coaching, and it was tough to always go to the gym. And then when you went to the gym, you're worried about, like, tons of people there waiting for machines and equipment. I was just like, you know what? This is going to be a whole journey in itself. I'm going to create a gym, that old school, like, blue collared, head down, just take care of business, that old school type gym. It's not the biggest thing in the world, but that's going to signify the beginning of what this gym through Envision could potentially be someday. And this is all just, I mean, it's the opportunity for documentation, for content, for YouTube channels, this is something that I picture I picture ourselves 10, 12 years from now, let's say. We're like, hey, let's go back to that vlog in 2020. And it's just a matter of, like, I mean, we're laughing at what 22-year-old Mike Eversole was doing in his freaking girlfriend's basement. Like,
true.
Legit. And, you know, like, you're dealing with old equipment that's been used, that none of it's brand new. The only thing that's new are the mats to protect the cement floor, right? But then you almost can freeze frame this in 10 to 12 years from now, let's say, you know, when things are potentially the way you want them to be, and, like, nothing's going to change. You know, you've kind of reached where you wanted it to go. And really the only thing you'll change is obviously updating equipment or paint or, you know, basic stuff. But as far as, like, location or a building or, you know, a place of space, you know, once you get to that point, I mean, it's going to be so easy to look back and laugh. I mean, 2 years ago, like, I laugh at 2 years ago, like, when I first started, like, did I really say that? My website really looked like that. Like, that picture, I thought that was
2020.
Oh yeah, right. But that's, you know, that was another reason why I wanted to name the collection, you know, the signature collection, because it's another thing that it signifies. And, you know, I mean, again, it's not designed to be corny or cliche. It's literally, if anything, it's foreshadowing.
Yeah, I gotcha. Very nice. We're all happy that things are going well for you, Mike.
Well, I'm happy things are going well for you guys too. I mean,
We started off in
first time we met, I'm pretty sure the chair that I was sitting on, I was convinced one of the legs was going.
I was gonna
somewhere.
say it
probably
had a
was.
leg
If that floor, if that floor wasn't carpet, it was going.
it was going down. We had floor foam from Jake's dad's basement. We nailed it. We nailed it and velcroed it to the wall
What you can.
in that apartment to soundproof it, and then hung up curtains. Holy crap! Yeah, dude. And then we didn't even have the apartment for like 3 months. We were recording in my parents' basement,
Mm-hmm.
straight up kitchen table style, downstairs.
Nice. I like it down there.
Yeah, my dad still thinks it's hilarious. He was like, because the one time you showed up and you had like your I think it was one of the Envision.
Oh, the string tank.
Yeah, the
thing?
string tank thing. And I mean, and it looked small on
Yeah.
RJ. It looked small on RJ. My dad was like, "How does he have so much hair?" He was so,
Yeah,
he was
that
so
was-
confused.
That was like prime. That was prime woolly mammoth season. Yeah.
He brings that up all the time.
I'm just hairy man. Look at
He's
my
like-
boy.
He's like, how does RJ survive in this summer?
It's horrible. As little clothes as possible. That's how I survive.
Oh man.
A good sheep shear here and there. You know.
Do you have anything you want us to try to talk about? I know we've been kind of interrogating you.
Honestly, man, I think I'm good on my end. I think you got a Christmas gift right there. You got.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Right here. Hey Alexa, turn the lights to relax.
Theodore's like, what the? What's going on?
Shout out to Philips Hue. You hear this? I want sponsored.
What's he opening, Bubby? Is that a present for you?
You wish, bruh.
He's coming over to look.
He's curious.
He said, what's in the box?
It's not good. It's not good.
Don't open it.
Oh, yes, it's the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. I was just joking about this the other day. No way. Is this the one from Hartville Hardware? Dude, this is so hilarious. I've been wanting to put this up in the apartment. I was messing with him, and I was like, because you know how I'm like the least aesthetically like design oriented human on the face of the planet. I'm pretty sure. Like,
I even have a tree somehow this year. I don't know what's wrong with me.
well, I always tell people that
getting
until I met
old.
until I met Jacob Popio, I didn't realize that your watch band needed to match your shoes or your belt. You know, like like the one day I was wearing a black watch band with a brown belt, and he was about to have a stroke. He said, "What is wrong
said,
with you?"
Blasphemous.
I'm gonna get this set up. You just put it. How does this? Oh, there's one inside of the other. Those of you that are listening right now, I'm trying to beat the tree, and currently it's beating me as far as how to put it together.
That's why they give you instructions.
Mike was trying to. Speaking of that, Mike was trying to collapse the shades on some of these lights, and yeah, you know what, guys? I'm just gonna give this to Jake.
He's gonna tell you.
And
how
he's not on.
We're outsourcing.
He's not on the microphone right now.
He's gonna tell you how I was trying to.
Oh, hold on. There's
Get the
another thing.
umbrella
Mhm.
side of those like lights down. I come walking out. I come walking out of my house
there's
when he picked
one
me up.
ornament.
Oh, it's a singular ornament.
Yeah, one ornament
Aw,
to
that's
hang on it. This is awesome. Thanks, Jake.
I come walking out of the house with those lights. They're all like they're all
Bundled.
put down, but I got the top part of them, and I'm carrying them, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know how to get these down.
They're coming whole.
You want to figure this out?
Oh, also, if we're gonna pretend that we're the Joe Rogan podcast, can we make Sam Jamie?
Jamie, get my DMT right now.
We got to get Mike Tyson on. Have you ever smoked a toad? What's okay? All right, so we're gonna have a little bit of fun. We don't like. I'm so tired of ending episodes like yeah, like I have you listened to the first episode that I ever recorded for this?
It's been a while, but I have listened to it.
It is funeral dirge. Like, I open it up and I'm like, my name is Jan. Yeah, serious the entire time. This is so dope. I'm so excited for this tree.
It's supposed to be like super bent, right?
Now nobody can give me crap for not having a Christmas tree.
You have your Christmas tree. There you go.
All right, so opinions on the Mike Tyson fight, right? And actually, I'm less concerned about the Mike Tyson fight because I do think that was awesome. And obviously, Mike definitely won. And this draw BS, when you have two boxers standing up there, right? And one of them is like, this was awesome. We should do this again sometime. And the other one is literally like holding their rib cage like, please, for the love of God, get me off of camera.
Get me to the hospital.
I think that we understand that there's a relatively clear winner. But
It was just for ratings.
oh yeah,
And
it's an exhibition.
pay-per-view money.
But first off, Jake Paul knocked out Nate Robinson, right? And now, did you guys see what the next Paul brother is doing?
Oh, Mayweather.
Logan Paul and Mayweather. All right,
Honestly,
thoughts on that?
The funniest thing that I've seen from the Jake Paul thing is he's been on a whole bunch of interviews and he gets asked it almost every single time. They're like, is it racist that you knocked him out?
Really?
It's like, wait, what? Like, legitimately, I would pull it up on my phone, but I don't know what news station it was, but it was two ladies.
Maybe there was something that happened that,
No, it
that
said-
we probably don't even know about.
No, she legitimately reads. She goes, is it or is it not racist that you knocked out a black man?
You're in a boxing.
In the middle, he goes, what does this have to do with sports? Never in my life would I have I defended Jake Paul, the kid who said that coronavirus isn't real and was throwing massive parties and stuff at his house. But I felt so bad for him in these interviews that I've seen. He's like, everybody asked me this. And he's just like, it was a boxing match. He goes,
Right.
what does color have to do with we both had gloves on and we're both going to punch each other in the face?
Right.
It was hilarious. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I don't.
He just looks like a deer in headlights.
I don't know. I've watched boxing matches and whatnot. I've watched like UFC fights, but I don't know. For me, I'm not a big fan of the whole. Hey, because this guy's been a big YouTube star, like let's label his fights as professional fights. Meanwhile, you got somebody from Philly who is probably.
I mean, do they market him as professional?
No,
professional?
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he has a pro card and he's got two pro
Jake
fights.
and
Logan.
really?
Both, yeah. And
I mean, in total honesty, I think those two dudes are just the biggest dingleberries of all time. Dingleberry.
I think I don't know. I think like I said, my thing on that is just
I've seen
they kind of got it handed to them a little bit. I'm not
Yeah.
saying they haven't worked hard or they haven't trained, but like they literally just called somebody and said, "Hey, I want a pro fight," and they're like, "Oh, sweet, all right,
And-
yeah, let's give it to them."
But that's the thing is boxing, since the UFC and all that stuff is rose to prominence, boxing is just falling off.
Yeah,
Too many weight classes, too many organizations. You say, "Oh, I'm world champ," and another guy from another organization, "I'm world champ," and then you have another guy from
I am the captain now.
the IBFBBLB division. I'm also world champion. You're like, who are these people?
yeah.
I go, you look at when you look at the UFC, it's like it is the UFC. There's some smaller ones, but these are the best fighters in the world. But then you go into look at boxing, it's like there's handfuls of other divisions, guys with multiple belts in multiple weight classes in multiple organizations, and you're like, you can't really make heads or tails of it. And MMA is boxing, but with it's like a bike with a little card in the back end that makes it sound like a motorcycle, and a train horn, and lights on the front and everything else. It's so much more and technical, and you see stuff in there that you don't use. A submission where the guy gets his jock strap over his head and chokes him out with it. There's just stuff in there that you're never going to see in boxing, and you repeatedly see the same stuff in boxing. And I think now it's more or less, I feel like a lot of people know that boxing is just going to kind of fall by the wayside in the next maybe 10, 20, 30 years or whatever. And at this point, make the money that you can in boxing with big names exhibition fights, old celebrities, old pro boxers. Do whatever you can at this point before it completely becomes a thing of the past.
Literally this.
Yeah, a thing of the past.
Yeah.
But I think, anything that some of the exhibition matches might bring a little bit of awareness to it, and maybe spark some consolidation of the organizations or whatever else if they're going to survive. Because I've fought. I love the sport, and I definitely agree. It's fragmented, it's fractaled at this point.
But I think my point is that you now have a prominent sport where there's so many different types of combat sports mixed into it.
Yeah.
Why would I'm trying to think how I can. Why would I go to a restaurant who has some of the best dishes, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and everything, but then only go there every day just for breakfast? Never go back there for anything else. You're missing out on so much more that makes up the entirety of the restaurant or a combat sport in general.
You want like the golden corral.
Well, I want real athletes who are able to showcase years and years of work in jiu-jitsu and boxing and judo and wrestling to be able to show all those rather than just a guy who might be good at all that stuff but can't attack the legs, can't choke someone out, can only punch them in the face with a heavily padded glove.
Yeah.
That I understand wholeheartedly why boxing was what it was back in the day, because that was the one sport that you saw people beating the piss out of each other, which is what people want at the end of the day. Well, now not only can I see someone beat the piss out of each other, I can see them also kick the shit out of each other, and then if they're lucky enough, titty twister them into submission.
Right.
Yeah, lots changed. I think a lot of this started when McGregor came over to boxing and fought Mayweather.
Yeah, and
which I was a big fan of. I bought that fight.
I
bought that fight.
I did as well. And I think it opened people's eyes to, with the onshoot of all the MMA stuff, that people realize the idea that boxing isn't the end-all be-all.
Right.
You can take an MMA person and drop them in a ring and let them box their hearts out. If they're skilled in boxing, they'll do well. But you can't take a guy who's just good at punching a guy in the face and drop him in an MMA ring and expect him to do super well. Yeah. You could have a guy who throws pillow-like punches against the best boxer in the world, but if he knows how to take him down and the boxer has no, ground wrestling or ground defense, it's done as soon as they get them to the ground.
Yeah.
Have fun
MMA, like if you're
from your back. But from a consumer perspective, why would I watch boxing when it is apparent that is not the ultimate combat sport?
Right.
I'd be like, I want to see where everything's being utilized. I don't want to see the one guy who's only good in an area where this is negated, there. You're not allowed to do this. You have to wear this. You have to stay on your feet. Let him have at it, man.
RJ wants to teleport back to the Coliseum.
I want old school.
He wants people butt naked in an arena with a sword, and that's it.
Mayhem.
That's it. Fighting a lion.
Honestly, have you watched any of the bare knuckle boxing? The bare knuckle MMA.
That's a thing?
Yes, there's a whole entire league of bare knuckle.
Reddit
No, there's a legitimate organization that is bare knuckle fighting.
That is not.
Oh,
that
yeah.
cannot be good for
Actually,
athlete.
go. Speaking of Joe Rogan, go watch their coverage on it when they talk to, I forget, they either talk to a fighter or a promoter for it. They said they are far less likely to be prone to injury in that.
If you punch someone too hard with your bare hand, it
exactly.
breaks.
He said you'll watch a lot of people like Baz Rutten used to do. If anybody knows who Baz Rutten is, when he fought in Strikeforce and all that, and they didn't make you wear gloves, he'd open hand, like sissy slap, open hand, knock people out with his palms. And he's like, I can hit him as hard as I want with my palm, but I get one bad shot in with bare, and I break 3 of my fingers and get a boxer's break in my hand or my wrist. They go, I'm as good as done. He goes, they it's not that they're pulling punches in the knuckle league, but they're just not hitting each other as hard, and there's a lot more grappling and intense groundwork there because nobody wants to break their hand on another dude's face.
Oh, so it's like bare knuckle MMA.
It is bare knuckle MMA.
Okay, I was like, I'm thinking bare knuckle by boxing
No,
rules.
just
I'm like, dude, there is no way that's gonna end.
I'm
good.
almost don't quote me, but I'm almost 100% positive that it is MMA.
Jamie,
No
can we get
gloves.
that up on the screen? As soon as we get those capabilities, we have to be able to do that.
But no, they
Just
were
have
saying
a camera pointing right towards that screen.
yeah, it was I forget who they were talking to, if there was like a psychologist, but they're like, you put that little bit of padding, all of a sudden someone's swinging to break a 2x4, not just to pepper somebody. True. When you have that consequence of you hurting yourself, all of a sudden your punches aren't coming off at 100 miles an hour. Yeah. Not that one good sock to the face with the glove on just end your whole career, but there is some precedent to what they were saying, and I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah. No, I've experienced like some minor like boxer's knuckle and stuff like that, and it's not fun. No bueno. Not fun at all. Well,
Drywall.
Theo, are you ready for bed?
Kyle.
I think Theo's ready. I think Theo.
My monster.
I think Theo's ready.
Yeah. What time is it? 10?
You want to
Last-
say goodbye to everybody, Theo?
The last 2 weeks, he's been, he'll just disappear in my apartment, and I'll go look in my room, and he's curled in a little croissant roll at the end of my bed. Like, I've been waiting for you to
grab
come
my
in bed
croissant.
for like 3 hours. Are you sleepy, buddy?
He's ready.
Knocked.
He's ready.
All right, everybody. Well, I'd love to continue this conversation, but I think we need to take the mascot to bed. So, Mike, as always,
Thanks for having me.
pleasure for coming to hang out.
Yeah, no problem.
RJ,
Stay safe, everybody. Wear your mask. Keep them over your nose. Wash your hands. Love your relatives from a safe distance. All that good stuff.
have a good holidays. I know that my Thanksgiving was a little bit interesting, but I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, and we'll hopefully have a good Christmas. Hopefully, we'll have another episode out for you guys.
And we're
before
working on more content for you.
And RJ's gonna have his own segment coming up here soon.
It's going to be full of
That's gonna
nothing.
be the
It's going to be chock full of nothing.
You know what really grinds my gears?
We should just have RJ review memes.
No, I just want. I honestly, I think of actually whatever. But actually, you know what would be pretty
Didn't they
cool?
just get
No.
Like
What would
Reddit
be
random
no?
and
This would
just
be
hit the random.
is if my section was you guys just brought stuff in for me to talk about, like
Dude, I am
whatever
so
the
ready.
hell you guys want, and then we'll just let the conversation roll off of that. I'll bring something that I want to talk about, and then everybody else brings something, and just let me have that.
I'm down.
That'd be funny.
I'm gonna talk about some weird shit.
Can we add White Claws into the equation?
Yeah, that's whatever you guys want.
I'm game. Full send.
White Claws.
You game? All right, let's get it. All right, guys. So, if you want to support us, right? If you made it all the way here, first off, you're a G, because like 90% of people stop listening by this point. So, if you're hearing this, first off, I love you. You're one of the loyal ones. You are a ride or die, and I want you to know that. We have a code for Envision Clothing Company, right?
Yeah.
What is that code?
Apex.
Apex.
All caps.
All caps, right? If you are still listening to this, go to envisionclothingcompany.com, use the code APEX, all caps, to get 10% off all of your gear. Pick up some Apex gear. Speaking of which, we need to talk about
Christ,
that.
wrap it up.
Pick up some Apex gear. Pick up some Envision gear. And until next time, peace. Emma, keep chasing your Apex.